Right friends, welcome back to editorial discussion. Second most important article, I have gone much beyond this, and this Hindu article of today, this talks about lifelines beyond farm loan waivers, and I have divided this into three parts. After listening to this lecture, you will be very clear about farm loan waivers, what are the deep rooted causes in agriculture, what can be the medium term strategy. These three things I am dealing with through this article. As I have already told you, the last three lectures today, that means last three articles, agri loan waiver, then the next one is transgender bill critical appraisal, last one is marketplace model, e-commerce, pros and cons. These are very important, right friends. Examine various pitfalls in loan waiver schemes. What should be the medium term and long term strategy to alleviate farmers' distress? Right, farmers' distress. We discussed number of times. Today I put forth number of points. You have to expand those points. And before going ahead, what is the ground reality? Ground reality is very clear. There is a huge distress in the farming sector. Very clear. Then mounting debt burden is pushing farmers to despair and suicides. All of you are clear about the deflation in the food products in recent times, right? Farmers are not at all satisfied with the onion prices. They are not at all satisfied with the vegetable prices. They are not at all satisfied with pulses prices. There is record production of pulses, record production of food grains. But the ground reality is now we are facing the surplus, and because of that prices crashed. Under these circumstances, farmers are put into more despair, right? And now the governments are looking at loan waivers, right? Loan waivers, they may be the solution if you look at in the short term, but there are several pitfalls of it. What is important is you should have clear-cut policy on agriculture, medium-term strategy on agriculture, and we are going to deliberate on all those things, right? So indebtedness became the elephant in the room that is becoming problem day by day. It is the big problem, right? And another important aspect is 52% of the farming households are indebted, and the rates are as high as 90% in some of the states. Right friends, under these circumstances, have a look at it. Here, if you look at since independence, at the time of independence, very important, at the time of independence, 90% of the loans were from non-institutional sources, like the money lenders at high interest rates. At that time, institutional credit like commercial banks, cooperative banks, it used to be just 10%. But now in 2013, it is 64% and non-institutional is 36%, right? But the important point to note is here big farmers are accessing more loans from institutional sources like banks, commercial banks, cooperative banks. Big farmers are getting the benefit. But if you look at the marginal farmers of less than 1 hectare, it is hardly 20%. You see this line? This line clearly indicates if you look at the marginal farmers of less than 1 hectare, the share of the institutional loan in total loan is just 20% for marginal farmers. And if you see marginal farmers and small farmers, they account for around 85-86% of the total agriculture. Right? So total agricultural holdings, if you see 85%, 86% overall put together, marginal and small farmers constitute around 85-86% in the Indian agricultural system. And unfortunately, if you look at marginal farmers, the share of the institutional loans is abysmally low in comparison to big farmers. Please see this line, it will be very clear to you. Though one important aspect is, though the share of institutional credit increased to 64%, that is welcome sign, but the important aspect is the marginal farmers They are still dependent on money lenders at exorbitant interest rates. And at the same time, if you look at the leaseholders, somebody has taken the land on lease. He do not have access to institutional credit. Similarly, Adivasis, similarly women. Women may not have access to much institutional credit because the ownership is not there with women. There are a number of problems if you look at from this perspective. Right, friends? Let us look at the farm loan waivers. Major pitfalls. I have listed around 10 points. These 10 points are very important. First one is, big farmers take institutional loans more in percentage terms in comparison to small and marginal farmers. This is classic example, and because of this, that means if you look at it from that perspective, who will benefit more? Big farmers will be benefited more, right? So in loan waivers, big farmers will be benefited more because you see some of the categories are excluded. Women are excluded, Adivasis are excluded predominantly, and land leaseholders, they are excluded from the institutional credit. Marginal farmers, their share is just 20%. Under these circumstances, the biggest gainers are big farmers. Then second one is, it puts the farmers in a peculiar situation. Government announced loan waiver today, but a genuine borrower, in spite of the difficulties, he paid back by borrowing money from outside 2 months ago. What will happen to that person? Right? Then it spoils the credit culture, most important. And farmers will be looking for loan waivers instead of paying in time. That means they will look for the elections, when the elections will come. Right? Then interest of the banks will be lost in the agricultural loans. They may achieve priority sector lending targets, but they may concentrate on semi-urban areas. They may concentrate on loans against pledging of gold, and they may classify them as agri loans, which ultimately benefit the big farmers. Then it creates moral hazard. What is moral hazard? Moral hazard is a situation in which one party knows very well they will be protected. That's why they will in fact become careless. That means government will come to our rescue. Therefore, why do we pay? That type of behavior will come. That is moral hazard. Responsibility will go away. Then substantial agri loans in semi-urban areas. In fact, they are classified as agricultural loans. But the important point is, these loans are granted against pledging of the gold. They are rich farmers. And banks also encourage this because it is risk-free for the banks. At the same time, they classify them as agricultural loans. And because of this, big farmers will be benefited. A marginal farmer may not have gold to pledge to get the loan for agriculture. Right? Ineligible beneficiaries may be in and eligible beneficiaries may be out. In 2008, all India level loan waiver took place. At that time, CAG audit has pointed out number of irregularities, and ineligible borrowers are in, eligible borrowers are out. Then personal loans, car loans, microfinance institution loans, they were dubbed as agri loans in 2008 as per CAG report. And there may be tampering, overwriting and alteration of the records by the banks. These are all stated by CAG report. Then CAG found several irregularities in 2008 loan waiver scheme. Right. So these are all the pitfalls of loan waiver scheme. Right, friends? Let us look at deep-rooted causes for agri-distress. Government in the long term should try to eliminate these things with cooperative federalism. Center and states should sit together. Then only it is possible. Here, APMC Act, it gives monopoly. Farmer is required to take to particular mandi. no cold storage, right? Under these circumstances, whatever the price middleman says, that is final. He has to sell in distress, right? Electronic national agriculture market is not implemented in true letter and spirit, right? So under these circumstances, no marketing freedom for the farmer and lack of collective bargaining because of 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, small farmings, or you can say small farm holders. And under these circumstances, farmer producer organizations can be one solution. Farmer producer organizations, they can look at collective bargaining on behalf of farmers, right? The need of the hour is the farmer producer organizations. Then exploitation by middlemen, lack of awareness, illiteracy, and non-implementation of minimum support price, except for few crops, that too in few areas, right? Then lack of compensation during droughts and disasters. Then no attention for R&D. Agriculture research and development is not given due attention. That is the important aspect. That is major failure after liberalization of 1991. Then failure of the crop insurance schemes. Now government came up with the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Even its success is also not seen. In fact, in comparison to 2016-17, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana registrations reduced in 2017-18. That is the irony. State governments are not taking required interest. That is the important point. And crop cutting experiments, which are required for assessing the yield, they are not being done by the states. The compensation is delayed badly. The insurance amount is delayed badly. That's why farmers are losing interest. Then, no forward and backward linkages. This is very, very important aspect, right? So, farmers should have proper linkages. He should get seeds. He should get quality fertilizers. He should get quality seeds, right? He should get in-time fertilizers, in-time pesticides. And at the same time, the produce, the agricultural produce should have linkage with the food processing sector. Food processing sector should establish linkages with the farming sector. That type of linkages are missing in our country. This is possible only when food processing develops, right? So food processing is not taken roots. Because of that, the linkages are not established. If food processing is there, automatic linkage will be there with the farming sector. That means the food processing sector will be looking at the farmer, how to grow the crops, how to in fact increase the yield. All those things will be monitored by some other person also, because he is also interested. So in agriculture sector, forward and backward linkages are missing. Then value addition is missing. Value addition is possible only when food processing sector takes roots. Cold storage facilities are missing. Because of that, vegetables, fruits, losses are more. Farmers are throwing on the roads. Farmers are throwing tomatoes on the roads. It is the regular sight. Then unpredictable export-import policies. Sometimes government promotes exports. Sometimes they promote imports. And there may be delay of 6 months, 1 year, during which the loss or damage is done. Classic example is pulses. Pulses production increased, but government continued to import the pulses, which resulted in glut. Glut means excess. Because of that, prices crashed. So therefore, this unpredictable export-import policies. Then Irrelevant Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act was relevant when food shortages were there. Food shortages were there in 1950s, 1960s. At that time, it was relevant. And in the times of surplus, it is irrelevant, right? Then no proper storage and packaging facilities. So therefore, the government should look at long-term solutions. Long-term solutions revolves around removing all these bottlenecks. Removing all these bottlenecks should be the part of the long-term solution. That is the important point to note. And medium-term medium term solutions to alleviate farmers' suffering. Here, access to institutional credit should be made available not only to the land owning community but also to the tenant farmers, Adivasis, women farmers, animal rearers who are dependent on livestock. For them, institutional credit must be made available, and all the cultivators, whether they are land owning or tenants, must be given Kisan credit card. Then, marginal and landless farmers are excluded from institutional credit. They should be in. That is the important aspect. This should be the medium term strategy. And as per one study, 75% of farmer suicides in Telangana are by the tenant farmers. Then RBI issued guidelines in 2014 to extend loans to Bhumiheen Kisan, landless, and for debt swapping scheme to convert informal loans into bank loans, but they remained on paper, no headway, nothing moved after that. Then proper implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, most important. State should take interest. Crop cutting experiments, state should pay premium in time. The insurance company should pay the damages in time. Then there is a need to establish Farmers' Distress and Disaster Relief Commission. Very, very important. At the state level, national level, Farmers' Distress and Disaster Relief Commissions at both the levels, and they should look at the loan rescheduling, interest waiver, one-time settlement. All these things must be looked at by them. And the main principle for support is the farmers who suffer losses due to the circumstances beyond their control. That means there is some cyclone, there is drought that is beyond their control, and this commission, that is distress and disaster relief commissions, they should look at the conditions where the conditions are beyond the control of the farmers. Then the concept of limited liability. When something is beyond the control, if you see limited liability, this word is commonly used in the business parlance, right? So bankruptcy protection, these two words are very important. So therefore, if situation is beyond the control of the farmer, he should not be penalized, right? And bankruptcy protection, if the situation is beyond the control of the farmer, then banks should not start bankruptcy proceedings. And as we have already seen, distress and disaster relief commission should look at all these things, whether the conditions are beyond the farmer's control, and government should bring advisory. Now satellites are available. Government can bring advisory well in advance through the mobile phones with regard to the pest attack. Why the government wait? Why the farmer wait till the pest attack? Now modern tools are available, and there should be targeted protection to distressed farmers, right? And another important aspect is the aspect pertaining to usage of technology. Technology should be used to alleviate the farmers' distress. Right, friends, we had sufficient discussion at the medium level, at the long-term strategy, or you can say as long-term strategy, what needs to be done. We deliberated in detail. Right, friends, this is the last editorial lecture of 2018. Have a nice day. Thank you.